play it any louder, then it's getting shut down.
My name is Waffles, and I'm a government whistleblower turned political commentator, and this is the last 24 hours in the news. Today is September 29, 2025. It is 11:57 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Here are the top news highlights for the past 24 hours. 200 National Guard troops federalized in Oregon. Portland, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has deployed 200 Oregon National Guard troops under federal authority following President Trump's order to protect federal immigration facilities. Oregon has filed suit challenging the deployment as unconstitutional. Illinois troop deployment. The Trump administration has requested a deployment of 100 troops to Illinois, especially around federal operations in Chicago. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has publicly opposed the plan and called it an overreach. Masked federal agents are active in Chicago downtown. Reports indicate that federal agents operating near iconic Chicago locations have begun arrests. The presence of these masked agents has raised fears of escalation and profiling. Portland described as war-ravaged, and I've seen footage of it, and I think a lot of us have, that there was literally nothing going on, and people were just going about their daily lives, and the streets were empty. Portland described as war-ravaged. War-ravaged is, I guess, what your average everyday city looks like when people are just going about their daily business and there's no disturbances. Legal pushback intensifies. In announcing the Oregon deployment, President Trump described Portland as war-ravaged and authorized troops to use full force if necessary. That rhetoric and deployment have provoked strong criticism from state and city officials. Federalization of National Guard in Oregon, turning state guard troops into federally controlled forces, represents a shift of how military resources might be used domestically. The move raises questions about federal versus state power in crisis responses. Scaling up the use of military orders in domestic policy, the combined moves in Oregon and Illinois suggest a broader pattern of invoking federal troops and law enforcement under national security or immigration rationales. The increased presence of federal forces in Portland and proposed deployment in Chicago may affect public access, city transit, or local business operations in those zones. Ongoing concerns about the restructuring at the CDC. Nothing new, but let's not forget about that. International relations, U.S. actions with domestic implications. Domestic troop deployments carry diplomatic weight. Deploying U.S. military forces within the country, especially under full force authorizations, is being observed globally and could affect how foreign governments view U.S. civil governance and legitimacy. It's going to make it hard for people to do business in those areas, and it is going to make it so people don't want to travel to the United States to engage in tourism or business activities. So it's not good for the economy to be destabilizing regions. Federal troop requests in multiple states could trigger interstate objections. The moves in Oregon and Illinois may set precedents for other states or refuse or legally challenge further deployments, contributing to national tensions. Legal actions against the Trump administration. Oregon's lawsuit contesting federal guard federalization. The state and city of Portland have filed a federal lawsuit challenging the Trump administration's deployment order, arguing it violates state sovereignty and limits on federal power. And the stock markets closed today with the S&P 500 at $6,661.21, up 17.51 points. That is a 0.26% increase. Dow Jones Industrial Average at $46,317.07, up 68.78 points, which is an increase of 0.15%. Nasdaq Composite up at $22,591.15. That is up 107.9 points, which is an increase of 0.48%. Today is Monday. Let's see if the stock market loses all of the gains it just made by the end of the week. That seems to be a trend. Based on reputable time-stamped reporting from the last 24 hours, here are the top economic highlights for the United States for the past 24 hours. U.S. International Investment Position, Quarter 2, 2025. The U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, BEA, released statistics showing that the U.S. Net International Investment Position, IIP, the difference between U.S. residents' foreign financial assets and liabilities, was negative 26.14 trillion at the end, and that's dollars, at the end of the second quarter of 2025. This compares to a revised down negative 24.65 trillion at the end of first quarter of 2025. The U.S. Net International Investment Position, IIP, is the difference between the value of U.S.-owned financial assets abroad and foreign-owned financial assets in the U.S. at a specific point in time. A negative net IIP, as the U.S. currently has, means the U.S. has a net liability to the rest of the world, a net debtor nation, while a positive net IIP indicates a net creditor position. The position is a key indicator of a country's overall financial health and its financial ties to the rest of the world. So it's negative. When it includes U.S. assets, the value of all financial assets owned by U.S. residents in foreign countries, such as direct investments, portfolio investments, and other financial claims. U.S. liabilities, the value of all financial assets owned by foreign residents in the U.S., representing U.S. financial obligations to foreigners. So that's what this negative number that we're looking at means. U.S. financial obligations to foreigners. The IIP changes over time due to several factors: financial transactions, the buying and selling of assets and liabilities between U.S. residents and non-residents, price changes, fluctuations in the market value of financial instruments like stocks and bonds, exchange rate changes, changes in the value of foreign currencies relative to the U.S. dollar, which can increase and decrease the dollar value of foreign currency denominated assets and liabilities. So it was 26.14 trillion at the end of second quarter. And first quarter it was 24.65. So the negative amount, the amount that the United States owes to foreign countries, has increased over the past quarter. Technology stocks rebounded while oil companies declined as the price of crude fell. Focus on U.S. dollar decline. Analysts and economists continue to focus on the significant decline of the U.S. dollar index, which is approximately 10% lower year to date. This is seen as a consequential development with potential for long-term impacts, including higher prices for imports, contributing to inflation, costlier international travel for U.S. residents, and a potential gradual loss of confidence in the dollar's role as the world's primary reserve currency. Federal Reserve and upcoming jobs data. The market's immediate focus remains on the possibility of further interest rate cuts by the Federal Reserve this year. The upcoming non-farm payrolls report for September, scheduled for release on Friday, is the highlight of the week with expectations. Helps if I don't delete stuff while I'm reading it. With expectations. Federal Reserve and upcoming jobs data. The market's immediate focus remains on the possibility for further interest rate cuts by the Federal Reserve this year. The upcoming non-farm payrolls report for September, scheduled for release on Friday, is the highlight of the week, with the expectations for modest job gains that would support the case for continued Fed easing. Government shutdown risk, political uncertainty over a potential U.S. government shutdown. Funding runs out on October 1st. It is noted as a factor that could introduce a market volatility and potentially delay the release of crucial economic data as well as the files. Although historical market impact from previous shutdowns has often been limited. And remember, kids, the stock market is not the economy. Just because the S&P 500 or Dow Jones might be performing does not mean that wages are growing, jobs are secure, inflation is under control, or that people are thriving. And here's the upcoming hazardous weather outlook for the next 3 days. Southeast U.S., Florida, Georgia, and the Carolinas. Primary hazard, tropical storm impacts, marine and coastal swells, and high surf from tropical storm Imelda and more distant Hurricane Humberto are expected to generate dangerous marine conditions and life-threatening rip currents along the east coast, particularly from Florida up to North Carolina. Coastal flooding and rough surf are anticipated to be the main U.S. threats from Imelda. Rain bands. Imelda is expected to influence the weather across the southeast over the next couple of days, bringing rain bands and breezy conditions. Time frame continues through midweek. Southwest U.S., Arizona, and New Mexico. Primary hazard, previous heavy rain impacts. Recent severe weather, including devastating flooding, which left fatalities in parts of Arizona, is mentioned in reports over the last 24 hours. While the immediate severe weather has passed, this highlights the region's current vulnerability to excessive rainfall. Isolated showers and thunderstorms may occur, as noted in the forecast for some interior areas like New Mexico. Isolated activity possible. The primary threat has already occurred. Central U.S., Plains, Midwest, Mississippi Valley, primary hazard, dryness, drought, and warmth. An expensive dry air pattern is forecast, which is expected to intensify drought conditions across parts of the central and eastern U.S. Warm and dry conditions are generally expected to remain for the foreseeable future across many parts of this region, particularly in the southern plains. Severe weather, the outlook for any widespread severe weather, tornado, hail, damaging winds remains low for the immediate 3-day period. West U.S., that would be the Pacific coast and interior west. Primary hazard, unsettled conditions. Unsettled weather is generally forecast across the west, while not imminently severe. A magnitude 5.2 earthquake off the coast of Oregon was recorded 2 days ago, which prompted a tsunami information statement, but no tsunami warning or threat to the U.S. Unsettled conditions persist with no major widespread hazard expected in the next 3 days. Northeast and mid-Atlantic U.S., primary hazard, coastal and marine. Dangerous marine conditions and rip currents due to swells from the tropics are expected to spread north and affect much of the east coast, including this region later in the week. Inland weather generally quiet with a gradual northward spread of coastal impacts. And that's it for the weather. Here's the top international news highlights for the past 24 hours. New Gaza peace plan. The White House has released a 20-point peace proposal to end the war in Gaza, which was presented by the U.S. President and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The plan reportedly includes a phased Israeli withdrawal and the release of all hostages held by Hamas within 72 hours of both sides accepting the deal. Initial reports suggest the proposal has been welcomed by Arab, Islamic, and European leaders, with the focus now turning to Hamas's response. Intense fighting in Gaza. Despite the peace initiative, fighting remains intense, with reports of Israeli forces intensifying bombardment of Gaza City, with casualties reported. Humanitarian groups, including Doctors Without Borders, were forced to suspend activities in parts of Gaza due to the escalation. I have a cat that's like smacking me from the side of my chair here with her claws out. Apology to Qatar. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu reportedly called the Qatari Prime Minister to apologize for an Israeli strike that targeted Hamas officials in Doha. Europe and Russia/Ukraine renewed Russian attacks. Russia launched a massive barrage of drones and cruise missiles on Ukraine, striking Kiev and other targets throughout the country, resulting in multiple casualties. NATO fighter jets were reportedly scrambled in Poland in response to Russian strikes. Moldova election. A pro-European Union party has defeated the pro-Russian groups in a key election in Moldova, which is viewed as a significant blow to Moscow's influence in the country. Drone sightings in Denmark. Denmark's Defense Ministry reported new drone sightings over army bases and defense locations, continuing a trend of unexplained drone activity near strategic sites in the country. Alright, so we're just going to take a quick look at the map again so we know what we're dealing with. So this is Denmark right here. Let's go ahead and zoom out. Okay, so, I mean, I'm going to assume that these drones possibly, likely, I mean, if there's anybody that's acting as a foreign adversary, it's probably Putin. So, Denmark is right here. This is NATO. We've had activity coming in from the southern flank. There's been activity coming in over here. Attempt is on Poland, so it looks like he has advanced over to Denmark. So, I mean, yeah, like, he's trying to, in my opinion, it looks like Putin's trying to surround frickin' NATO. Alright, yeah, so questionable drones sighted in Denmark. Mercenaries in Ukraine. Reports indicated that captured Cuban nationals were fighting alongside Russian forces, allegedly having been offered one-year contracts with a monthly salary of $2,000. If you guys see any Americans assisting Russians in Ukraine, please let us know if you are in Ukraine. Asia and the Pacific. Afghanistan internet shut down. The Taliban leadership reportedly ordered a communications blackout, shutting down the internet across Afghanistan to prevent immoral activities. Afghanistan is ravaged with drugs, and the women are living like prisoners there. The situation in Afghanistan is very bad. The Taliban ordered a communications blackout and shut down the internet across Afghanistan. There's women activists who are trying to secure their own safety in some way because they're literally just like being locked up in buildings over there. Like, normally I don't talk about the treatment of women in Middle Eastern countries because there's a lot of racism surrounding that issue. But Afghanistan is bad. Like, really bad. Like, the heroin trade is going on in Afghanistan on a significant scale. So things are just really bad out there. So if they're shutting off the internet, I have some concerns over the safety of the women over there. Myanmar scam crackdown. China. A court in China sentenced 11 people to death and 5 to suspend death sentences for their alleged roles in Myanmar-linked gang operations, which operated scam centers and illegal gambling rings. India and Canada are now having tensions, apparently. Canadian authorities listed the, I'm going to butcher this word, Bishnoi, I'm assuming it's Bishnoi. Canadian authorities listed the Bishnoi gang, which is based in India, as a terrorist entity, allowing authorities to seize assets and freeze accounts. Africa and America's Madagascar political crisis. The president of Madagascar dissolved the government following massive youth-led protests over water and power cuts that have reportedly resulted in multiple deaths. Diplomatic spat with Colombia. The U.S. government revoked the visa of Colombian President Gustavo Petro after he joined a pro-Palestinian protest outside the United Nations and called for international force to end the conflict in Gaza. Essentially, Donald Trump bullied him. Oh, dang, I'm like recording with this filter on. Essentially, Donald Trump bullied him, and from what I saw, if I'm thinking about the right report, it was essentially, you can't buy fancy crap while you're here. Like, I don't understand it. It put shopping restrictions that they couldn't make purchases of certain things while visiting the United States during the UN convention, if I'm not mistaken. Venezuela tensions. Reports indicate that U.S. military officials are drawing up plans for potential actions, including drone strikes inside Venezuela, as U.S. officials claim they are interdicting drug trafficking boats in the Caribbean. This concludes our news report for today. Stay safe out there. We'll see you later.
So the Olympics is great. And Johnny, for the others, the World Cup, Johnny is the head of it. We had our top people, Wasserman. They all came in on the Olympics, and then I saw Johnny. And we got the World Cup, too. And, it's only because they rigged the election that I'll be your president representing you there. I got both of them. I got the Olympics, and I got the World Cup. And I said, it's too bad. One was in 2026 and the other was in 2028. And I said, I won't be there. I won't be your president. But then they rigged the election and now we won. So I'm going to be your president for the Olympics and for the World Cup. So Johnny, thank you for the World Cup. And everybody, thank you for the Olympics. We're going to have a great time.
Hey guys, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment to my videos. And also, don't forget to check out my shop where you could get this awesome Real Patriots Punch Nazis t-shirt. America, fuck yeah! And if you go to the link tree in my bio on most platforms, it's got links to everything, all of my stuff. You can find my shop there. I'm on eBay. You can also get this cool Exterminate MAGA sticker, because MAGA's fucking cockroaches. And fuck MAGA. Abolish MAGA. Fuck you, MAGA.